highly recommend you do. On a day like today, it's gorgeous out there. We're getting a lot of our migratory birds coming through, so if anyone likes to bird as well as garden, right now is a beautiful time. I was brought to Montana via a AmeriCorps work program. It was the Big Sky Watershed Corps. If any of you folks attended our Native Plant Symposium meeting yesterday in the morning, there is a gal named Miranda who has recently started at the Montana Audobon Center, and she is a part of this program as well. And I have asked her to help me out in assisting Mayflower Congregational Church. Miranda used to work at a nursery back in California that worked on propagating and growing native plants, so she is a wonderful asset to us here. She unfortunately couldn't join us today. She is out hiking to Sioux Charlie Lake. This is her first hike since moving to Montana, so I'm excited for her to be out and about. Let's see. Yeah, just kind of from California, as Carol had mentioned. So we had California condors and cool desert plants. So I went to school in Northern California in the giant redwood trees. I love restoration ecology. It is what I hope to continue to do for the rest of my life. And yeah, so today I am here to hopefully help y'all with getting this gardening project maybe underway or get some direction to it. I went out and I looked at your property not that long ago, and it seems like there is wonderful potential in that back corner. And what I got to thinking was that there is a program called the Gardening for Wildlife, and it is put on by the National Wildlife Federation. There is a Montana-specific chapter to this, and I think this might be something that we could potentially look at together. Before I go any deeper, does anyone have any questions or comments? No. Okay. Hearing none, assuming none. So I will share this link with the group so you all can check it out later. But let's see if I can share my screen again. Okay. Oops. Yep, this is what I want. So the no, I'm clicking too many things. So the National Wildlife Federation has different parameters for different buildings or organizations to kind of help encompass everything that a garden for wildlife needs. So when I was talking to Carol before, she had mentioned that you all had hoped that this area could kind of become a bird habitat, which is wonderful because when folks try to target birds and creating habitat for birds, it encompasses all of the little creatures. So all of the bugs, all of the little mammals and things will kind of benefit overall as well. And it's kind of a real simple thing to do. So what I'm showing you right now is the places of worship that have been certified as a wildlife habitat garden. There are a couple main things that y'all would need to do as far as getting certified. So with the garden area, you will need to have some sort of food source. So this could be a tree or shrub that produces berries of some kind. So a juniper, a rose hip. There are beautiful dogwoods out here that produce berries, just something that a critter could eat. It could also be in the form of pollinator plants. So if we were targeting, say, monarchs or viceroys, or even some very eclectic moths, You just need to have some plants out there that could provide that nectar. So there are lots of easy growing, hard to kill plants that I utilize at the Montana Audubon Center for our certified gardens. So it is very simple to do, and these things grow well. The other thing you need would be a water source. So some sort of area in which animals or bugs can drink out of. I'm gonna switch tabs real quick. There's a better one. So yeah, here is our food source. So I guess another aspect to creating a food source is it doesn't necessarily need to be plants. You can also use bird feeders as well. The only qualm I have against some of the bird feeders is that there are some troublesome birds out there that like to come pick on all of the little songbirds that like to go for food. If you've ever seen the red-shouldered blackbirds, they are bullies, as well as the European starlings. We will have little chickadees or goldfinches that will be at the Audubon Center, and all of a sudden you'll hear this cacophony of squawking coming in, and all these red-shouldered blackbirds will swoop in and chase out all of the little birds. So you just need to be kind of aware of feeding with the feeders. So when the blackbirds show up for us, we tend to not put out bird feed, so that way the blackbirds kind of move on and try to find the next source, and then we can go back to refilling them. So just a little bit of vigilance is needed with a supplemental feeder, but it is still a good way. The next thing that we would have to do for the garden would be a water source. So when I was out at your property, I saw that there were sprinkler systems set up for the little community garden that you all have, which is great. So there must be a well or something on site. So either there be a little bird feeder or some sort of ponding just to allow little critters and things to get a drink. I know there's the ditch that's along the southern boundary. That could also be a form of drinking water, but the water part is thankfully very easy. Another aspect of it is cover. So you want to have some place for little things to hide. We have lots of Cooper's hawks and sharp-shinned hawks down at the center, and if you are out there at the right time watching our bird feeders, sometimes those predatory birds come in real fast because there's a lot of plump little birds sitting there enjoying the good life, eating, and are a little carefree, and so they'll scatter. And all around our bird feeders, we have these shrubs. There is a water birch, there are more dogwoods, there's some buffalo berries, but all of these plants have in common is a very thick and dense understory. So the little birds can kind of get up and in and be very well protected from the larger predatory birds or mammals that may be trying to reach in there and get them. Roses tend to be really good for that. They're very thorny and are perfect hiding places for small birds like chickadees or goldfinches, or even just the house finches. They can slip in. Nothing can really get them unless it's small or determined. And yeah, it's also a good place. They can build their little nest in there, because I'm sure with whatever we put in there, something will want to try to build a nest, and just having a place that's out of the way of predation or weather or any of that sort is ideal. So another thing is places to raise their young. This I am a little fishy about. Well, I guess maybe fishy is not the right word, but it's a little difficult to define as far as places to raise the young. If we are targeting bird species, then that becomes a little less difficult to do, because oftentimes the birds, when they're chicks, will stay kind of within their nest, and when it's time to fledge, they can fully fledge and can easily flitter around to any other tree or shrub or bush, they don't need an awful lot of area to roam and then come back to once they have fledged. This kind of becomes more of an issue if we are dealing with some sort of larger mammal species, which thankfully we're not, that may need a wide area to roam and be free. But for birds and bugs and things, it's relatively simple to do, and it is kind of done passively through covering with food and water and wildlife cover. The next part is just kind of how you folks like to maintain or work in these areas. So sustainable practices. When I was out at your community garden, I noticed that you all had left a couple wildflower beds that still had the old stalks with seeds on them. And that's perfect. That's just what is needed for a wildlife garden. Oftentimes, those little seeds that you have left work as food sources for small mammals and birds throughout the winter. If there's not a supplemental bird feeder, they can be kind of desperate, and so having those food sources available is good. And then also you had, well, in part by leaving the little seed heads, you left plant material there, and that's wonderful for bugs and little things that need a place to hide and hibernate throughout the winter. So just kind of continuing what you've already started, I think would cover the sustainable practices portion of gardening for wildlife. I will be sure to share this webpage with whoever is, say, putting out an email after this meeting, and it might be something to hold on to. Once your garden areas, which I believe you kind of would already qualify for certification, you would register on this site, and they come out with a little plaque that's probably about yay big and yay wide. It's kind of like a no dog sign, and it's very simple and easy to do. It doesn't cost you much, and it's fairly straightforward, and I would love to help y'all in any way that I can. I often work with Yellowstone River Parks Association, Billings City Parks, and then a whole cohorts of just avid community gardeners and nurseries. So I'm constantly trading plant material and trying to distribute it out into the community. So in any way, shape, or form that I can help, please let me know. Any questions, comments, or concerns on anything that I have spoken about?
In regard to your transporting plants, I have little oak seedlings that come up.
Really?
Yes. And I would be glad to share them.
Oh, so being from California, we have the golden oak that we learn about in our history class. And it's an oak tree where they found gold kind of attached to the roots. And I am endeared to that plant, so I love oak trees out here. So I would happily take you up on that. I can grow them big and strong in my nursery that I have in Two Moon, and if you'd ever want any of them back, they'd be waiting for you.
So I have lots of little squirrels that put their acorns into my soils. And last year I had about 7 of them sprouting, and I'm waiting to see if they're going to take hold again. And they need to be removed from it because I know their roots go down, and it's near the house. So you see, if they're good, I'm ready to share, to let them go and live.
See, and if your tree decides to drop more acorns, well, does it produce acorns every year, or does it skip years?
Are you talking about my tree? I have no tree in my yard. It's the squirrels that bring them.
They are proactive.
Linden and an aspen trees, and the rest is yard. And lilac tree. So, but yeah, they climb our telephone wires, and they're up and down in the other trees. And for some reason, they like my little garden.
So your little garden's a perfect hiding place, I guess.
Anthony, a follow-up question. What about squirrels and rabbits? Can they be a nuisance, or are they a plus for this kind of a garden?
They might be a nuisance as far as the relation to your vegetable garden that you have close by. They may not be content with the food and berries produced in this wildlife area when there is such tantalizing fruit so close by. So that may be an issue. As far as the actual garden space you hope to create, they would be rather kind of neutral as far as their impact goes. They may, well, they may wreck some of the younger plantings or seedlings that are done in there just through no fault of their own, except maybe giving it a nibble to see how it tastes, if it's supple enough to eat, or just climbing on something. So they're kind of hyperactive and will scramble up anything. But other than that, they're a nice kind of bonus to like a little area like that. So kind of like how they were saying that they were hiding acorns in her yard. It's a good way for nature to kind of help replant itself around. So these squirrels and small things will gather up the berries and seeds from the plants in this garden and want to put them someplace for later. They will often forget that, and then you'll have kind of an expansion of your garden that you didn't have to do anything to. It'll just kind of happen on its own. There just may be a little bit of loss, say, from your vegetable garden or any little new thing you put out there. But
Anthony, one of our interests has been in pollinators and butterflies. We'd love to help with the monarchs, but is that anything we can do?
Absolutely.
Have monarchs been sighted here?
Oh, yes. So last year, we had about 15 monarchs sighted at the Audubon Center. And this was our first sighting in at least 5 years. That was what my coworker had said. She had never seen any there. I went a little crazy on planting milkweed everywhere. That is the host plant for the monarchs. Their little caterpillars don't like to eat anything else. And it was a tremendous summer. We would go throughout our garden, look for the little green golden chrysalises. So it's very feasible as far as planting milkweed out where you are and having it grow. I've got a kind of sun-dependent species that I'm willing to share. I've got lots of seeds that I've collected throughout my time here, and I am on the hunt for a milkweed called a swamp milkweed that I think might do well in your shaded portion of the garden. There were some large trees that were on the southern ditch bank that might kind of shade an area that would be a nice calm place for the monarchs to rest, but we just would need a food source for them there, and a milkweed like that would, I think, do well. And then I have lots of pollinator feeding plants, so lots of coneflowers, blanket flowers, what else? Echinaceas. There's a lot of seeds. I'm still trying to clean and package them all to give away, but they are very hardy as far as their ability to survive in kind of tougher spots. They are often seen along the highways. If you go to Red Lodge, it's the same sort of flower, and it is a great food source all year long for butterflies, bees, flies that look like bees, moths. So easy to plant, easy to grow, and really hard to kill. So I can happily give you as many of those varieties as you'd like. That's the whole reason why I've been collecting them at the Audubon Center. I guess another part to mention as far as planning with this garden. So Jerry Dalton is a good volunteer and a friend of mine, and we spoke about this project Thursday and Friday, and I asked him to take a look at his garden in his backyard area, because he has a certified garden for wildlife. And my thought was that whatever he is growing in his yard around there would probably work well in the area that you all have described to me, because the soils are the same, and oftentimes the type of soil you have dictates what you can grow in these areas. So I figured whatever has worked well for Jerry would probably work very well for y'all in your space. So I've asked him to make me and us a list of these plants so we can go over and see what potentially you all would like and what we can get access to.
Wonderful. Does anyone have a question as it relates to their own yards?
Mm.
I know I planted, I have maybe 3 butterfly bushes, types of milkweed, I guess, in my yard. And what I'm thinking is I need to have a lot more in order to really attract, or a lot more flowers instead of just a little here and a little there to help out on the situation.
I have 3 or 4 milkweeds that come up every year. And I did a search and it looks like they're a very common milkweed. I didn't plant them. Somebody else planted them. But I did save the seeds to plant this spring in case any of the church people wanted to use it. I did the research for the name, but I don't remember what it was. I don't know if it's the kind of milkweed you're looking for, Anthony, or not.
It might be. I'd be willing to experiment and try a couple of those seeds if you're still willing to lend some of them out.
No problem. No problem.
Steve, you had a question?
Yeah, Anthony, we've tried planting some milkweed a couple times. We've had difficulty with squirrels digging up the seeds a lot. But a lot of times they are pretty active little diggers. And is there a simple strategy to get past that?
So when you were planting your milkweed seeds, did the squirrels dig them up before they had germinated some, or did they just dig them up right away?
Right away, yeah.
So what you might want to try, so milkweed is kind of strange as far as how it likes to get started. So I put mine in a refrigerator, the seeds, for 2 weeks to a month before I want to plant them. And that kind of gets them a little bit of a head start. So that way when they pop up out of the ground, they are able to produce that toxic milky sap that they are so aptly named for. And the squirrels can't eat it. It's a terrible irritant. I warn everyone, don't get it in your eye. It can actually blind you. So if you can get the milkweed to at least have a little bit of a head start to produce that substance, then you would probably be a little bit better off from the squirrels.
So starting them inside would probably help.
Yeah, so it's that way they can just produce that chemical deterrent and not be such a yummy little seed snack that the squirrels like.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony, have you seen any Cooper's hawks yet this spring?
I think so. I'm often kind of confused with my identification between the Cooper's hawk and the sharp-shinned.
Mm-hmm.
There's a slight difference that I often can't quite make out, but I think I have. I want to say I saw one at Pioneer Park a day or two ago. It was cruising low through the park, kind of going along the creek side.
I was shocked to see one in right beside CVS on the sidewalk tearing apart a dead bird that was there. And it just sat there. It wasn't the least bit afraid. Let me take pictures of it. And I don't know which kind it was either, but it was a small hawk having a heyday with a dead bird there.
It's DD. It said you had a question.
That was her question.
That was me.
Or comment.
Gotcha.
But
Anthony, go ahead, Dee Dee.
I also have milkweed that's coming up in my lawn suddenly, just starting last year, I believe, which I thought was really odd.
Yeah. I often wonder how sometimes it gets there, but
Yeah, just
seed spreaders are wild. The wind just takes it and blows it everywhere.
popping up in my grass. So
Anthony, one of the situations we have on our land is the ditch, which runs that whole southern border. And I'm wondering if we should let a margin of that grow wild. Right now we have about, I don't know, maybe a yard or 18 inches, but I'm wondering, should we think about expanding that out more feet? Just to go to grasses and maybe put some of those woods roses out there?
I think that would be a great idea. The distance from the ditch, though, is best decided by whoever is on the ditch board or whatever the ditch board decides, because I would hate for y'all to plant something or put something out there and they just run through and tear it up, because it is a violation of some sort. So if you know who runs the ditch there, it might be wise to ask them just how far away we need to stay from that. But yes, so letting it kind of go to grasses and roses and things plays into the cover portion of the Gardening for Wildlife program. So little things can then kind of hide and mat down in the grass. The roses and such then provide a nice bush, armored bush kind of castle thing to hide behind. Yeah, so but the ditch might be a nice passive source of water for some of those plants. So I'm imagining the larger taprooted plants like the roses or say a willow or something of the sort. Once it finds the depth at which that water is, we may see an explosion of growth that kind of takes off and really boosts what that garden is able to produce. Yeah, we just need to make sure we stay away from the ditches, whatever distance that they set for us.
Any other comments or questions?
Say, I've got one for y'all. Have you heard from Canyon Creek? Has Ann McKean spoken to y'all?
We haven't had a public, a forum with Canyon Creek, but they are, Ann down there is working with us for plants that we will put in and trees. And she's coming up with some kind of ideas for us as to how we might do that.
Okay, good.
Dee Dee, can't hear you.
I was just gonna say that, speaking of a water source, my cousin who lives in Idaho has a bubbler, and it's a large container with a circulating pump, and the water bubbles all the time in it. It comes up in the center, and the deer drink out of it, as well as the birds and the butterflies. And I wonder if something like that wouldn't be really nice somewhere in the garden. It's very good looking, as well as a really nice water source.
Mhm.
The neighbors
Yes.
might not appreciate our encouraging deer to, and they might like carrots or whatever we put in our raised
Well,
beds.
that's true.
Carol, I wonder if you want to share with everyone how this came about and this whole idea of having a songbird habitat, or a wildlife habitat, because I'm not sure everyone in the church really knows about that.
Well, let's see, Susan Jurevich, maybe you could kind of speak to that. She's the chair of our Creation Justice group.
Yeah, so we actually started this conversation with Kathy Hay, I believe is her last name, at Wild Birds Unlimited, through our fellow congregation member, Barbara Miner. Barbara, in her own backyard, has really worked hard to attract birds and gets her supplies at Wild Birds Unlimited, and was there at the store one day, and she and Kathy started chatting, and Kathy said, oh my gosh, it would be great if you guys could do something with your land. And so then they started that conversation, and then Barbara approached the Creation Justice Task Force with this idea. So it actually started with Kathy and Barbara, Wild Birds Unlimited and Mayflower Congregational. So we have been moving forward with it because the Creation Justice Task Force felt like it was obviously a perfect project or task to not only promote wildlife, but hopefully help provide more plants for reducing our carbon footprint. So that's where we are. It started with a conversation in a store in Wild Birds Unlimited. So.
Your plans are to put together some kind of proposal for our next quarterly meeting, is that right?
Correct. So with our proposal, we hope to have not only some specific plants that we would like to have purchased, but possibly, like you were talking about, Dee Dee, another water source or possibly supplemental feeders. We've considered all of those things. Right now, we're planning to focus on the plants for the feeding purposes rather than too many supplemental feeders. But we hope that the project and the garden will continue to grow over time. Obviously, what we start here in spring of 2021 won't be the final end. It will hopefully continue to grow, and we will continue to add plants and other features as our needs dictate, or as the wildlife needs dictate. The proposal will also be hopefully approved by land use, the land use committee, and then the church council prior to our proposal to the congregation as a whole. Yeah, and then the other goal is to become, like Anthony was talking about, becoming a certified habitat. you can get a songbird habitat certification as well as a community wildlife certification, like Anthony was talking about. And the songbird habitat certification is very similar to what Anthony described. So you can kind of get several different certifications from one habitat if you so desire. But our main goal is to just make sure that we are planting and supporting a viable habitat that not only attracts birds and insects and possibly the smaller mammals, but again, like I said, reduces our carbon footprint, hopefully, as well. So the proposal will be, it will be our start, but not our end, if that makes sense.
I guess it's not too early to say that for Earth Day, we plan to plant our first tree. And we will have a banner up during April or around Earth Day, signifying our creation justice, I'll say motto, and in support of recognizing Earth Day. I think we're getting toward the end. I just want to raise one other aspect of all of this, and that is the idea of restoration and seeing not only the big global warming, climate change part of this, but also the need to restore habitat so that all critters, as Anthony was putting it, are able to be maintained, that we don't lose so many species all the time. One aspect of this I'll alert you to is that in the month of April, we are going to be have a movie night with Netflix. David Attenborough has One Life on Our Earth. It is a phenomenal presentation, not only of the serious nature of what we're up against and the beauty of what we have. I mean, the footage of what we have is tremendous, of course. So we're going to have a movie night that shows that film, and the thing that he brings up is the need to preserve, I'm going to say 30% of our natural world, if we're going to save our world, I guess would be a way to put it. So we'll be having a movie night, and we will be having a tree planting on Earth Day and a banner. But Anthony, just in closing, perhaps you could say something. I did attend that Habitat Native Plants seminar yesterday morning. I was fascinated by the fellow from our Parks department who was talking about all the native plants and gardens that our Parks department are putting up, such as downtown and this Pioneer Park thing. I've got to walk Pioneer Park to see what he's doing in the ditches. Would you say a little bit more about what Billings is doing that way?
Mm-hmm. So the fellow that Carol is mentioning, his name is Nick Miller, and he has become the City of Billings horticulturalist. So his job entails trying to put plants in all of or most of the parks around Billings, in the planter beds that are all along Montana Avenue and some other areas downtown. His goal has been to try what he terms as region-specific natives. So what that means is it is plants that come from a similar type of ecosystem or climate just so that way these plants have the best chance of success in Billings. He has started to shy away from going exclusively for native plants because with potential climate fluctuations in the future, he was less optimistic about some of his success. So he has gone to region-specific native and is trying to put them in tons of parks. So in Pioneer Park, there is a spring seep kind of along the northwestern portion of the park, and he is going to fill it full of Indian paint and brushes. There is a wetland verbena he's putting in. I think there is a type of lupine as well, and something other, I think a pestamon. But if you go to that park now, it is a big, soupy, swampy mess. I play a lot of frisbee golf, so I am there often. I actually live about 5 houses down from the park, so I see it all the time. I'm going to help him care for it when I'm there. But it would be a good way to kind of re-wild this area. So kind of similar to how y'all are trying to do it in the lot. For your church, he is trying to create a wildlife habitat sort of area in that park. We also helped participate in what he called his plug program. And last year we went up to, I believe it was Swords Park. It was by Yellowstone Kelly's grave. And he had a bunch of kind of dry land species that are real beautiful and don't take much water. And we planted a whole bunch up there. His hope is that these will get established and seed out and kind of begin to replant themselves in that area. Unfortunately, a lot of the stuff that was within the rims was lost as we developed the roads and houses, so his plan is to kind of sneakily put some of that back. The other park that I can think of is another one called Cameron Park. Is it Cameron Park? Don't quote me on that one, but essentially it is a park that he has 3 different ecotypes through. There is a river that runs through that's got a forested stand. There is some sagebrush grassland area, and there's also a nice kind of big open lawn space for people to kind of run around in. And he's putting more region-specific natives in these areas just to kind of help spruce up diversity, because that helps to bring in new bugs and new birds. And at least to me, it is generally more aesthetically pleasing. Some folks may not agree with that. Others want these park areas to be kind of a typical soccer field looking park, but he is a knowledgeable man. He's doing good work. And they're always looking for volunteers. So if you would like to help out with the city parks, you can give me a call and I can connect you. And I will also share that resource in a follow-up email that I will send to Carol or whoever else would like the information. So, another plug though. So next Saturday will be part 2 of our native plant symposium. So I have another city forester who will be talking about the work done at Riverfront Park. He has been treating a lot of the buckthorn and Russian olive that's out there, and he kind of goes over some of the river ecology that's there. Then following him is a gal named Emily who will be speaking on how to do xeriscaping. So that is kind of a way to do minimal work for your gardens, but still have a nice healthy garden. So it's targeted plants and designs that you can use to minimize water use and your own labor. It'll start at 9 o'clock on Saturday. The event is free, so you can attend via Zoom like this. We just say, hey, there's a suggested donation, so give what you can. But if not, please attend We want to help kind of promote these sort of resources and knowledge throughout Billings. So all are welcome.
And that's on the Audubon website, the Audubon
Yep.
website.
And then
Yeah.
I can share a link as well with more sign-up details.
Okay, great.
A question here.
Yes.
Yes, Ken?
We have about 8 deer that eat just about anything we put out. Are there plants that deer don't want to bother with?
So are they eating, or are they doing the rubs where they're
No, they're
scrapping
They're
and
eating.
breaking?
Eating our
They're eating.
bushes. If it's a kind of a pine bush, they don't touch it, but any other kind of bush or plant, they just enjoy eating it right up.
I'd say my rose hips tend to do very well. They don't often get eaten, at least the stems. They'll kind of nibble leaves and fruits, but
Yep.
they don't do too much. Dogwood does very well. I think, what else get eaten? Let me think more on that. Struggling having things come to mind, but I'll send you a plant list of what I can look up and think of.
Thank you.
With that, I think we'll close. Anthony, thank you so much for your thoughts, your concepts, and if anybody has any further questions, can they email you at Audubon, or what would be the best way to get in touch with you?
So my email is a great way to get in touch with me. I check it semi-regularly. I am putting it in the chat. I spelled it wrong. Let me make sure I fix that.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So feel free to grab that email and share it around. Say if I don't personally respond to you, I may have passed a particular question off to my coworker Miranda. She is also a very knowledgeable person and someone else I've roped into this, because the more minds, the merrier for something like this. So hopefully the two of us can answer any questions y'all have.
Well,
Thank you very much.
We very appreciated all of your comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All.
Thank you.
Have a good Sunday. Enjoy the rest of this beautiful day. We will.
Yeah, and thank you, Carol, for arranging all this.
Oh, sure. Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good afternoon.
Bye, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
So long. Happy spring.